Welcome to the Lean Body Mind Podcast. My name is Steve, and I will be your host and companion for the next 15 or 20 minutes. So grab yourself your favorite breakfast beverage, whether that's coffee, tea, bourbon. I'm not here to judge. And let's spend a little time together. Incidentally, you may notice I've got a new Yeti tumbler here. The one that I used to have was given to me as a gift from my friend Jay, who lives down kind of southeastern-ish Illinois. And we used to get together once a year, him and a couple other friends and me, and we'd always have a little gift exchange. We'd draw names and we'd give each other some sort of unexpected gift. And he bought me a Yeti tumbler, and this had to have been, 6 or more years ago. And when I got it, I didn't really know what to think, but subsequently wound up using it pretty much every single day ever since. And it finally hit the point where the bottom was starting to blow out a little bit. I'm not sure what the deal was with it, but I felt probably best to retire that and get a new one. So I'm a big fan of Yeti. It's some quality products. You'll also notice, assuming that you're watching and not just listening, we're filming this podcast outside today. Absolutely stellar podcast recording weather right now. It is 70 degrees, no wind at all, just the birds, and of course a little bit of hum of interstate traffic in the background. But I'm happy that I'm able to film outside. You can see the garden behind me. If you're wondering, am I going to be doing a gardening follow-up video? I don't know. I hit this time of year every year, sometimes earlier, sometimes later, where I don't have the energy anymore to garden. And it really comes from a couple of different places. Pretty much every year, I get into that April to May time frame and kind of announce that I'm not interested in doing a garden this year. It's too much work. I don't get enough help from the family. And the family then acts like children who want a puppy. And they start making all kinds of promises. We'll take him out for walks every day, and we'll clean up the dog poop in the yard, and we'll give him baths, and we'll make sure he's fed, and all of that. And then ultimately it winds up being, dad and or mom that are taking care of the puppy. That's kind of the way it goes with the garden. Oh, we'll help. And then I may get a little bit of help, but not nearly enough to manage a garden, because a garden is some work. And then also we'll get something like some really crummy weather, which will just beat on my garden badly. You can't see it, but over here, all the corn that I grew that took a beating from some heavy rains and winds. In fact, also what you can't see over there is part of my deck that took a beating. We had some really stiff winds about a week ago, and it took my patio furniture, including the umbrella, and took it airborne and into one of the deck railings and just pretty much demolished it. So that's also on my to-do list, is fixing that. And when I'm doing all these other things, that also takes away from gardening time. Long story short, unless it's too late for that, I don't know that there will be a lot of gardening videos this season, besides the ones that I already did. I think probably what I will do, the best thing I can do, is plot out what I feel should be the gardening videos for next year, so that I make sure that I've got a cadence of gardening videos. We'll see. Oh wow, geese. Do you hear that? Those geese flying overhead? On the subject of videos, we had our first sort of non-podcasty type of video this week with the tomato paste hack. And yeah, I realize I kind of did a version of that same video over on SeriousKeto, but I want to have any sort of cooking videos or cooking hacks or cooking product reviews that aren't specifically keto related. I want those here on this channel. So you'll see that here. You're going to see some product reviews coming up. You're going to see some cleaning hacks. You're going to see some food management and visual management in the kitchen type hacks. Got a lot of stuff coming up. It takes a while to work through some of these videos, and they're coming. I give you my word. You'll start seeing at least 2 videos per week. You'll see one short form video, and then you'll see one longer podcasty video. And it's possible that I might get to a point where I'm doing 3 videos per week, probably a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday release schedule. But I ask that you be patient with me. Pretty much every week begins with just a scramble for me, sort of mentally and physically, trying to determine what I'm going to film and getting it filmed for both this channel and for Serious Keto. So please be patient. Please understand that this is still a newborn baby of a channel. We're not even crawling yet. It's just a tiny little baby that still needs a lot of love and care and nourishment, and I'm trying to give it that. Now, as I said, I will be doing a fair amount of reviews on this channel. There'll be book reviews, which I'll have one of those a little bit later. In terms of products, generally it's going to be products that make some sort of a promise. These are some sort of innovative thing that you just can't live without. I've always been a sucker for infomercials. Back, when I used to watch TV before I cut the cord, I could just watch infomercials for hours on end. And I bought a lot of stuff, a lot of not very great stuff. And now the sort of infomercial is the little ads that pop up on Instagram or Facebook, and I watch those, and every one I watch I'm like, should I get that? Is that really a great fry pan? Is that a great way to improve my core? Is that the wonder supplement I've been waiting for? So I'll be trying some of those out. I'll take the bullet for the team on those things and let you know, are they worthwhile? Are they worth your money? Along those lines, one of the things that it's going to take a while to do this review, but it's looking at various meditation apps and systems. So I have bought a number of them. So what I've got so far, I've got Headspace, Breathe, 10% Happier, which is the app based on the book 10% Happier, and Meditation for Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics, also by Dan Harris, which I'll be reviewing probably in my next podcast. Mesmerize, which is an interesting one. I saw this one on Instagram. It's a visual thing. It's like you're almost flying through a kaleidoscope or something. You can just sit there, or I can anyway, and just look at my phone and just watch this, just sort of mesmerized. But then there are also audio programs and meditations that go with it. And then lastly, also along that same line, is Trip with 2 P's. That is a VR meditation system. And actually, come to think of it, I've got 1 or 2 other ones on VR. So I've got the Oculus Quest 2 VR headset. And I'll talk more about VR, I think, at some point in a future podcast. I think the technology and the applications of it are fascinating. And I don't think we've even scratched the surface of what can be done with it. But some of that is pretty wild, too. When it's just, full, your field of view is a little bit limited in VR. You don't get like a full 180. You can kind of, see the black around it. But it still can be pretty engrossing. But anyhow, one of the things that I will be doing in the future is a review of all of these different meditation apps. That's going to take a little bit of time, and I don't know if I'll do them 1 at a time or 2 at a time or what, but that's on the way. Now in just a moment, I'm going to review this book, Living with a Seal, but first, a brief little ad break. This book, Living with a Seal, by Jesse Itzler, was lent to me by my friend Ben, former co-worker at GE. He and I trade books a lot. I've got mixed feelings about this book. So first off, Jesse Itzler, I wasn't sure how I felt about him. As I read him and I read his writing style, a couple things kind of jumped out about him to me. And I'll be the first to admit, these are my biases. So I could tell fairly early on that he was a vegetarian. Although I don't think he ever came out and said it in the book. Just when you get someone that's constantly talking about how they eat fruit and veggie burgers and things like that repeatedly, I don't know that a lot of other people other than vegans and vegetarians just like to get so, I don't know if I'd say in your face, but just feel the necessity to tell you constantly what they're eating. Oh, I had fruit today. Oh, okay, great. The other thing too is he's a distance runner. And I have found personally, and this is my bias, that anyone I've ever met who's a distance runner and or a vegetarian just has struck me as a little bit self-righteous. And that's my hang up. I got that vibe from him early on. Now, the book itself is, I would say, 80% really enjoyable. Oh, one warning, first off. The language in this book is a hard R rating. If you are bothered by hard language, especially MF, frequent uses of MF, this book brings it. So if that's a showstopper for you, I would say probably just avoid this book. But the 80% that I really enjoyed was when Jesse was talking about the workouts that he was being put through by the SEAL. He doesn't name the SEAL till the very end of the book. And I would encourage you not to try and find out who it is if you do decide to read this book. Read through the whole book and then get hit by the impact of finding out who it is at the end. I cried a little bit at the end. Then again, I'm a big softie. But as I said, 80% of this I really enjoyed because it is about how we are, and I've mentioned this before in a previous video, we are the biggest limiting factor in our own lives. We so often underestimate what we are capable of doing. And in this book, it's really about what we are physically capable of doing, what our body can withstand, that we don't push ourselves as hard as we can. So from the aspect of just mental toughness and getting out of the box and doing something that's really hard, I loved that. I found it very inspirational. It's the sort of thing that if you read this, you will be far less inclined to complain about any physical hardship in your life, I believe. Now, the 20% that I didn't care for so much is when Jesse is talking about himself and his past, how he started off his career as a white rapper and he was on Yo MTV Raps, and how he was just a hustler and, in the music industry and an entrepreneur. And there were a couple things I was rubbed slightly wrong about in this. There was a little bit of a self-congratulatory nature to it. But more than that, there were a few things that he described that he did early on in his career where he claimed to be someone else, like to get a meeting with a record exec, or things like that, that just struck me as mildly fraudulent, or at least a little bit sketchy. It's the sort of thing, as someone who in the business world myself was guilty of periodic, mildly sketchy behavior. I've grown sensitive to that. I think also when you're reading a book by someone who is quite wealthy, I think his net worth is around $250 million. He's married to Sarah Blakely, the first self-made female billionaire ever. He's doing all right for himself. And as a result, when he describes certain things like, hey, once you fly on a private jet, you'll never want to downgrade to first class again, or something like that, I just find it hard to associate with a person like that. I think had this book been written by just a normal guy, someone like me, someone, a couple of pounds overweight who decided to really push himself or herself, I think I would have related to it and enjoyed it a lot more. Now, subsequent to reading the book, I got out and I wanted to see what Jesse Itzler was like, sort of in motion, and hear his voice and things like that. And I found a video where he was doing a keynote speech, and this was a virtual keynote because it's, during the COVID period of 2020. And I'm looking at him, and, here's this guy who's a 28 or 29 years, he's been vegan. He's 52 years old, and so a year younger than me. Yet I'm looking at this guy, and I'm thinking, he looks like Forrest Gump after Forrest Gump ran across the country a couple of times. He's got this big, shaggy, sort of disheveled beard. He looks a little bit sickly to me. But I don't want to get hung up on the looks thing, aside from the fact that I felt that it's interesting that here's this guy who espouses vegetarianism so much and distance running, and is younger than me but looks older than me. And I'm eating keto, and if I'm going to do cardio, it's going to be high intensity intervals. Anyhow, I digress. As I was watching him and sort of skipping through the video, I saw someone I didn't relate to, and it kind of confirmed my feelings about not relating to him in the book. But nevertheless, I felt his writing style was good, and I enjoyed it enough, the book enough, that I will probably read his other book, Living with Monks, because I think that has the potential to be interesting as well. On the whole, I would say I would probably give this somewhere between a 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10. If you don't like profanity, you're not going to like this at all. If you're interested in seeing just how much a person can be transformed when they have someone pushing them, interesting stuff. Oh, one other thing that would have made this book great is if at the end he would have listed the specific workouts day by day and really described them well, so you understand what he's doing for these workouts. Because he'll describe something as like a 1 to 18. Well, what's a 1 to 18? It's like 1 push-up, wait 30 seconds. 2 push-ups, wait 30 seconds. 3 push-ups, wait 30 seconds, up to 18. Or something like that. I think had there been a really nice appendix that if a person wanted to attempt to emulate what Jesse did in this, I think that would have been great. But that's my thoughts on Living with a Seal. So I talked earlier about meditation apps, and that probably would have been the ideal time for me to do the quote of the week. This one comes from an unusual source, perhaps. It says, "The more relaxed you are, the better you are at everything. The better you are with your loved ones. The better you are with your enemies. The better you are at your job. The better you are with yourself." That comes from Bill Murray. Who'd have thunk it? Hi, Colton.
Bye.
You're leaving?
Bye.
Bye. See you later. Did you want to come and be on camera for a second? Or no? Okay. So that's going to be it for this week's podcast. If there are topics that you think would be interesting for me to cover on these podcasts, separate from specific videos. I'm not looking for video help because I got plenty of ideas for that. But if there's things you'd like to see me talk about during this podcast, let me know down in the description below. I can't promise you for sure that I'll cover it, but hey, it gives me a pool of information or ideas to draw upon. So with that, thanks for watching.